Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back. I have a legitimate question for you. Do you think Dune is actually being set up to fail? Warner Brothers doesn't seem to care that it's going to be competing with the biggest Marvel movie in a very long time with Marvel's Doomsday. It just seems to want to leave it in place so that it releases in a direct clash with the Avengers, which I think might be a mistake. How about you? Let's take a look. Here we go. So, Dune may be set up to fail in a big way. You see, Warner Brothers refuses to move Dune Part 3 from the release date, which directly clashes with Avengers Doomsday. Is Marvel no longer a threat, or is that at least what Warner Brothers is signaling? Or is it something maybe nobody's quite as worried about as they used to be? Now, outside of the latest revelations with the new teaser trailers that dropped and all the characters that they're bringing back, including Chris Evans as Captain America, do you think that's going to change the game and Warner Brothers rethinks their strategy? I don't know. We have an article here from Marvin Montanaro that talks about just that. Let's get into it. Warner Brothers refuses to move Dune Part 3 release date despite direct clash with Avengers Doomsday. Is Marvel no longer a threat? Well, Warner Brothers is showing zero signs of blinking as Dune Part 3 barrels towards a direct collision course with Marvel Studios' Avengers Doomsday, setting up what could become the most fascinating theatrical standoff in recent memory. And yes, that was all one long sentence. Thank you for that, Marvin. It's a clash many are already calling Dunesday, which I think is rather creative. Now, with both films currently slated for December 18th of 2026, the studio's refusal to move its release date has sparked a bigger question incoming over Hollywood. Does Warner Brothers no longer see Marvel as an untouchable box office threat? Well, I can tell you this much. They haven't given people a whole lot of reason to worry. They can compete with them, especially if you're something like The Marvels or Thunderbolts or Brave New World or pretty much anything else that's come out from Marvel recently. There's really only one film with Deadpool and Wolverine that kind of, scared the boots off of everybody else and had incredible numbers, although not as profitable as we once thought based on recent revelations. In fact, I'm kind of worried about Doomsday from that aspect of the situation. Are they spending far too much to make a profit on something that literally is going to bear half of the actors ever in a Avengers movie all at the same time with their enormous salaries? According to reporting over at World of Real, another source that I use all the time because Jordan and the crew are pretty reliable, Warner Brothers executives are standing their ground, insisting that Dune Part 3 will not shift, even with the Avengers movie opening the same day. Industry insiders like Jeff Schneider and Matt Bellany have both corroborated that position, noting that Warner Brothers has doubled down internally on the belief that they chose the date first and there's no reason to move. In other words, they're counting on Marvel and Kevin Feige to blink. I don't know why he would. That confidence alone is noteworthy, and I agree. The timing makes it even more revealing, and a box office showdown like this, a few studios would not have risked until now. For over a decade, Marvel Studios dominated the theatrical landscape. Studios traditionally avoided opening anything remotely comparable near a major Avengers release, often clearing entire weekends and even months out of an abundance of caution. Warner Brothers' posture here suggests that era may be ending, and you're looking at a picture of one of the many reasons why nobody particularly got into this particular version of Captain America. And I imagine a lot of studios went, they're not giving us their A-team anymore. Marvel's recent theatrical track record has been uneven at best in recent years, and several high-profile releases have underperformed relative to expectations and obviously their costs. While audience enthusiasm, once unquestioned, has cooled off considerably and observably, cultural dominance has fragmented, and the sense of inevitability that once was surrounded the MCU is no longer feels like it's absolute, which again, I agree with wholeheartedly. Against that backdrop, Warner Brothers appears increasingly comfortable betting on Dune as a true event franchise rather than counter programming. And you know what? They may just be right. Why Dune is a different kind of blockbuster? Well, Denis Villeneuve's Dune films are not traditional tentpoles. They are prestige-driven, filmmaker-led epics that lean heavily on spectacle, tone, and long-term narrative commitment rather than quippy humor or interconnected sprawl. Now, here's where I deviate a little bit from the article. I would say that would have been true had it not been Denis Villeneuve's ego project, especially in the second film. That actually derailed anything that traditional fans of this epic masterpiece would have been able to connect with. I think going forward, and especially after the TV extravaganza, there is almost none of that long-term narrative left, at least nothing that will have the same continuity as the original novel masterpieces that we got from the master himself. The first two Dune installments built credibility to a certain extent, at least until the end, with both critics and audiences, although, as again, I explained, I don't necessarily agree with. This is something closer to Lord of the Rings than it is standard sci-fi fare or comic book slop, which is what we've been heavily dosed with since the Endgame phenomena. Warner Brothers may see Dune Part 3 as the culmination of a cinematic saga, one that benefits from confidence and conviction rather than defensive scheduling. And they could be right. In that sense, moving the film could have signaled doubt. Holding the date communicates the exact opposite. I agree with that. I think Warner Brothers is betting on Marvel fatigue. And you know what? They might be right. This is where the Dune Doomsday scenario becomes especially intriguing. Warner Brothers' willingness to go head-to-head suggests belief, spoken or unspoken, that Marvel is no longer commanding the same way that it did the universal audience attention that it once, held. Even if Avengers Doomsday performs well, the assumption that it will completely flatten all competition may no longer hold. And I have to tell you, I'm still one who would go to 2 good movies in one weekend and not worry too much about it, nor quibble about spending that kind of coin on 2 excellent pieces of entertainment. In fact, I know a lot of people like that. Once again, it's not like this next film, Doomsday, is going to be anything like the Marvels. In fact, I don't believe any of these actresses, other than maybe the one on the right, will appear in this next film. The industry has changed. Audiences are more selective, and that's no lie. Franchise loyalty is less automatic, and that was all destroyed by Marvel itself. Event films must now earn their cultural moment rather than inheriting it. This is, again, not Endgame. You cannot count on a given audience. Now, from that perspective, Warner Brothers may believe Dune appeals to a different but equally committed audience that won't simply abandon Villeneuve's saga because an Avengers logo is on the marquee next door. And you know what? They're probably right. A potential Barbenheimer moment. And this is brilliantly written by Marvin, so let me read it exactly. Some have already floated comparisons to Barbenheimer, but the situation isn't identical. Barbie and Oppenheimer thrived because they targeted radically different demographics while feeding into a shared cultural conversation. That's 100% true. And it's probably a similar comparison to these 2 films, since they appeal to completely different audiences, although there is overlap. In fact, Dune and Avengers overlap more directly in genre fandom, but that overlap may no longer be as decisive as it once was. If anything, the contrast between Villeneuve's austere sci-fi epic and Marvel's high-energy spectacle could work in both films' favor. And in that, he's 100% right. Could expose which franchise is truly commanding attention, and that could be very bad for Marvel indeed. So we come to a high-stakes moment, as the subheadline was likely going to read at some point in time. You see, Warner Brothers is up against it. They're running out of time before they are acquired by either one wannabe studio or another actual studio in the future. This may be the last mega project that it releases before that particular deal happens. And if so, well, it's a big deal for Warner Brothers. Ultimately, Warner Brothers' decision feels less like stubbornness and more like strategy. By refusing to move Dune Part 3, the studio is signaling confidence not just in the film, but in the shifting dynamics of the box office itself. And you know what? That's 100% true. Whether Dune versus Doomsday becomes a cautionary tale or a landmark moment remains to be seen. But it's clear that Warner Brothers is no longer acting like Marvel owns the calendar. And that, believe it or not, is a good thing. That alone, according to Marvin, says a lot about where the industry believes things are headed, or Warner Brothers specifically. So he asks the same question I would ask. Do you believe that Dune can unseat Avengers Doomsday, or do you think that Doomsday is going to be the doom of Denis Villeneuve? Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments section below. I believe that Denis has got a big challenge in front of him with this kind of competition, in particular with the heavy hitters returning to the Marvel franchise, this specific Avengers movie, which I didn't think they were going to try to put all the eggs back in the basket. But at the same time, my concern for Dune is larger because we've deviated so much and kind of destroyed some of the motivations and storytelling told in the original book rather than the recent adaptation, where girl power seems to have creeped in a way that didn't exist in Paul's story. But let me know what you think down in the comments section below. Can Dune displace Doom, or is Dune doomed? And on that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya. Probably at both of these movies.